Hi Year 10. Right, so this is activity number 2 for this week, so it's going to be a little bit different. Rather than giving you a PowerPoint and a Loom video to watch, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to do a little bit of modelling. It's really important that you remember that not only do we need to know the content, but we also need to know how to answer an exam question. Right, so what we're going to do today then is have a look at a 12 marker, okay? So can you get yourself a sheet of paper, a pen, or obviously your history book if you've managed to get that, and can you write down today's question? Right, so the question that we're going to be having a look at is this, okay? Which of the following was the more important reason why there were problems in America during the 1950s? McCarthyism or popular culture? Okay, and that is 12 marks. So pause the video while you just write down which of the following was the more important reason why there were problems in America during the 1950s, McCarthyism or popular culture, and that is 12 marks. Okay, before we answer any type of exam question, we should always get into the habit of going through and annotating the question first. I'm going to do this in a different colour just so that you can see that really clearly, but obviously if you don't want to do it in that colour, that is absolutely fine. Right, so the first thing that we should be circling is, well, how many marks is this question? So we know that this question is out of 12 marks. So straight away, I'd be writing down, right, okay, so it's 12 marks. So therefore it is 2 P paragraphs, okay? If you can't remember what a P paragraph is, it is point, evidence, and then answer. Remember, for our evidence, to try and get 2 pieces of evidence there to support us. And then your second little bit that you need to be writing down is plus a conclusion. Okay, one of the things that a lot of people tend to forget is that conclusion. You think once you've done your 2 points and your 2 pieces of evidence and your answers, that's it and you can move on. So please make sure that you know exactly what you are going to be doing for that question. We're then going to have a look at the actual question, okay? So what is it asking us to do? So it says, which of the following? So I'm going to underline this bit here, which of the following? So it's basically saying to you there to use the given points, okay? So use the points you have been given, okay? And the points we've been given are McCarthyism and popular culture, okay? They are giving you the 2 points that you need to be writing about. It's then asking you, which was the more important reason why there were problems in America, okay? So the word problems is the focus of your question, okay? Don't start talking about popular culture and how amazing it was for teenagers, because that isn't what it was asking you to do, okay? How is it causing problems during the 1950s? What I'd then do is I'd just start writing down some little bits of evidence about my 2 points. So about McCarthyism and about popular culture. Okay, so I'm going to start with McCarthyism. Just because there's not a lot of room around here, I'm just going to go underneath and write them down here, okay? So I'll do McCarthyism first here and then popular culture here. I'm just going to make myself a little table. Okay, right, so what I will start talking about then, so McCarthyism. I already know then that McCarthyism is the second Red Scare, so I'm going to put here fear of communism, okay? We then also know, well, why is it called McCarthyism? So at some point, we need to be talking about Joe McCarthy, the senator. And within that, think about how many people Joe McCarthy accuses. So he accuses 205 people of being communists. So I know I need to get those things in there somewhere. Okay, so the 205 being a really important one that we need to make sure that is in there. We then also need to think about this idea of fear, okay? So think about the newspaper article of Reds under the beds. Reds under the beds. Okay, and the fear that was generated because of that. Right, on the other side then, this one's a little bit harder. So if we've got popular culture, straight away when you think about popular culture is you think about all of the good things that popular culture brought with it. But this question's asking you about problems. It's not asking you about all the fabulous things that was brought with it. But that doesn't mean that you can't use those as your piece of evidence. So I'm going to write down rock and roll, okay? Which straight away you might think, well, that's a good thing. So rock and roll, we've got Elvis. Okay, we've got popular films. And we've got James Dean. But there's something that those two have in common which would have caused a problem. Okay, and the problem was this idea of rebellions. Okay, so they were being rebellious towards their parents. Okay, and that's the biggest problem. So rebellions and parents. The idea that they thought it was going too far. They thought that all of those things that they were doing were not good things. Okay, and that's going to then be able to link quite clearly back to our problems. Right. Now we've annotated our question, what we need to do now is make a plan. Right, so our plan needs to be our point, evidence, and answer. Right, so my first point has got to be McCarthyism because we've already been given that as our point. So McCarthyism. Right, my evidence. So ideally at this point, I want to think of two pieces of evidence that I can use to link back to the question, which is about problems, okay? So why were there problems in America during the 1950s? Well, straight away, I'm going to have to put, well, the fear of communism. That leads to a problem in American society. People are scared of something, okay, which is therefore a problem. Within that, I'm going to put 205, and I know that that means I've got to talk about 205 people being accused by Joe McCarthy. And the final one I'm going to put is propaganda. Okay, so propaganda, because of this idea of Reds under the beds, okay, it is leading to fear, and therefore that is a problem. Right, in our final little bit then, we need to think about our answer. So why was McCarthyism a problem in American society? And the answer is fear, kind of gave that away. So a fear, but it's also, if you think about all the things that we've looked at to do with McCarthyism, it isn't just the fear of communism, it's the fact that it's based on half-truths. So I'm just going to put not always reality. Okay, and that's like the scariest part of it. Okay, now we need to have a look at our second P paragraph. So our second point has to be popular culture. So I'm just going to put a P here, and then I'm going to write popular culture. Okay, so our second P paragraph. We've already really got our evidence, so the main thing we need to be talking about is rebellion, okay, against their parents. So the teenagers rebelling against their parents. And I'm just going to put rock and roll and films. So I know within that I'm also going to say James Dean, Elvis Presley, okay, but it's important that we don't necessarily have the world's biggest plan. Okay, and then our answer, how does that cause problems in society? So it's teenagers, okay, going against their parents, okay, and that's showing a really big generation gap, okay? This idea that there's now a group called teenagers, which there wasn't beforehand, okay? So quite a nice, simple paragraph there on popular culture. Okay, now we need to get into writing our answer. So we're going to use the plan that we've just created, and we are going to create an answer. Right, so the first thing I've got to do is I've got to turn my first point of McCarthyism into a sentence. So I'm going to use the phrasing in the question. So I'm going to start with McCarthyism. Okay, so that's obviously our point. Caused problems. So straight away, I'm going to be talking about the problems, okay, which is what it is saying in the question. So caused problems in America during the 1950s because. Okay, so that's my first sentence. And all I've done is I've simply used the point that was given to me, and then I've just changed the phrasing of the question. So what was McCarthyism essentially? So I'm going to say because people became scared of communism. Okay, so nice and simple, people became scared of communism. At that point then, so I've got a really clear point, I now need to move on to my evidence. Okay, so I'm going to say, for example. Okay, and at this point, I need to try and think of at least 2 pieces of evidence. So I've already planned them, so I'm going to say now at this point, right, so for example, Senator Joe McCarthy. Okay, so I'm really showing the examiner that actually I know exactly what McCarthyism is because I know who ended up creating this fear. So Senator Joe McCarthy accused 205, so straight away again with my really, really good piece of evidence there. 205 people in the government of being communist. Okay, so I've said Joe McCarthy and I've said 205. Technically, I suppose you could say that's 2 pieces of evidence, but they're not great, okay, together. 205 is the one that I would say, yeah, really smashing piece of evidence. I'm now just going to go a little bit further and say, well, what does that mean then? How does this piece of evidence cause a problem? How am I going to take that to be, well, actually, this is a really, really good piece of evidence? Okay, so I'm going to say this meant that. Okay, let's have a think. What does it mean? So this meant that many people began to fear communism. So many people began to fear communism and accuse others in society. Right, so I'm quite clearly now linking those pieces of evidence really, really clearly back to the question. Right, so that is my evidence. Okay, at this point then, I need my answer. Okay, so we'll always start it with therefore as a consequence. So therefore as a consequence. So therefore as a consequence, this meant there were problems. So again, I'm linking it back to the question. Okay, there were many problems in America due to the culture of fear created in society. Okay, right, at that point then, that is my answer, and that is a really good PEA paragraph. Okay, now we need to go on to our second paragraph of popular culture. So we're going to start it in a really similar way to how we started McCarthyism. So we're going to say popular culture also created problems. So again, remember I'm using that keyword that was in the question. Problems in America during the 1950s. Because. So think about what popular culture did that was like so bad or seen as so bad to certain people. So because of, I'm going to put new trends impacting teenagers. Okay, right, so that's clearly my point. And I need to go on to my 2 pieces of evidence. So I'm going to start this with, for example. Okay, to be really clear that I'm now using my two pieces of evidence. So I'm going to say, for example, rock and roll we're going to start with. So rock and roll became influential. Influential through the music of Elvis Presley. I particularly love the fact that we can use Elvis as a piece of own knowledge in this topic. We're also going to include films, so I'm going to say also films encouraged. So think about what they encouraged, rebellion. So encouraged rebellion against strict norms. So what I mean by that is like the normal things that people do in society that were quite strict for teenagers at the time. Films encourage rebellion against strict norms with actors like James Dean. Okay, and I'm just going to put in brackets there what film he was in. So he's in a film called Rebel Without a Cause, which I think is quite an important thing to get in there because it quite clearly backs up my point, doesn't it, of me saying that films are encouraging rebellion. James Dean encourages in it. Oh, and here's a film that he's in, which is called Rebel Without a Cause. So you've literally got the word in there. So that is my evidence. You're then going to go on to your answer. So we always start it with, therefore, as a consequence. Okay, so why was popular culture a problem? So therefore, as a consequence, popular culture created problems. So again, using that word. Created problems due to many parents disapproving of these new trends. And teenagers acting against society. Okay, so there you've got your answer. So really nice and clearly, point, evidence, answer. Okay then, the final thing that we need to include in our 12-mark answer is a conclusion, okay? So we're going to start it really simply with in conclusion, okay? Again, we're going to repeat the question. So we're going to say, well, my answer is going to be popular culture, but I'm going to link it back to the question. So I'm going to say, in conclusion, popular culture was the more important reason why there were problems in the 1950s. This is because teenagers were going against their parents and McCarthyism was fear and not always based on the truth. Okay, so it doesn't have to be very long, it just needs to be, here is my actual point, so that's what I'm saying, my overall conclusion is popular culture, and this is why this one is better than this one. Okay then guys, I'm hoping that me talking you through all of that information and how to actually structure a 12 marker, how to go through it, has just refreshed your memories a little bit. What I need you to do now then, so obviously I'm hoping that you've gone through that with me. Ideally, you could have your own copy of that written out, annotated where certain things have been completed. But what I do want you to do, and this is compulsory, please make sure you do this as part of your learning this week, is to have a go at this question. So which of the following was the more important reason why there were developments in America during the 1950s? World War II or popular culture? And it is 12 marks. Right, so before you go, I just want you to think about this. So which of the following, remember, we're going to use those given points. It's saying developments. That is the focus of your question. How did these two things help develop society? When you're thinking about World War II, I want you to also think about the American dream. Okay, how did World War II influence the American dream, the American economy during the 1950s? Popular culture, think about all the things that we didn't necessarily talk about in the one that we've just written. How was popular culture good? Okay, how is it a good thing? You can use Elvis, you can use James Dean, the exact same. So hopefully then through this, we have had a look at all three topics that you have done so far. Keep in mind then, it is a 12 marker, which means 2 PEA paragraphs. Okay, so 2 PEA paragraphs plus a conclusion. Very important that you get that conclusion in there. Okay, final little bit from me then, guys. Email your teacher if you have any questions at all. So if you're really unsure about how to answer that 12 marker, let your teachers know. Thank you for taking the time to watch this and going through it all with me. And I'll speak to you all soon and see you all in your activity for next week. Keep up the hard work and stay safe.